Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Creative Side Up. Thanks for joining us. My name is Tim Olsen, and this is the show where we unpack creative minds. This week my guest is singer and bass player, Dan Sutter. Dan.
Hi.
Hi. You are a bass player
Yes,
and
I are.
musician and Elvis impersonator, and
Done that.
You've done a lot musically in your life.
Yes, true.
And so my curiosity comes from, when did music and the ability to play music enter your life? Do you come from a musical family or background?
I do. Actually, I was on stage before I was in kindergarten.
Really?
I was an atomic bum.
What is that?
That was at in Mount Horeb, where I grew up. There was every fall, there was a carnival that would come to town, and it was called the Fall Frolic, and it would stay there for about a week, and they had this big stage set up, and at one time they were talking the atomic bomb and everything, because this would. I was, well, what, 4, 5?
Wait, it was called the Atomic Frolic? Or
No.
It's like, what?
It was called the Fall Frolic.
Fall Frolic,
But
yes.
they had this
There was
thing
an
on
atomic
stage.
theme.
Yeah, there was a stage, because we were,
Yeah.
the atomic bomb,
Right.
watch out, oh my God.
Right. Now, did that ever end up happening?
No.
I know.
It almost happened, and then Slim Pickens.
It was in the zeitgeist at the time.
Yeah, Slim
and
Pickens landed it down. He jumped out of a plane.
Yeah, right. And so now you are, before kindergarten even, you're on stage, and what are you doing on stage?
I just walked across. I was an atomic bum. I was all dressed up in a little baby tux, and I walked across the stage, and they went, "Here it is, the atomic bum," and everybody went, "Oh man, that is so good."
But you're not registering at that age. You're not registering, this is going to be my life on stage.
No, but at that stage of life, you go, "Hey, I can do this." I mean, you were doing kids and
I was doing
magic.
shows and stuff, at a young age, but not pre-kindergarten though.
But still, in all, at a young age, all of a sudden you go, "Wait a minute,
there's
this
an
is
excitement
cool."
in that. Yeah, there's definitely, you get that feeling of, okay, I have to perform something now. Everybody's looking at me. Something has to happen.
That's right. And for me, I was one of the bigger kids, so I got that. And then in kindergarten, I was the strong man.
In a show.
Yeah, and they glued hair on my chest, and all. It was the weirdest thing.
They glued the hair on your chest, but you still had to lift the weights. The weights were real.
Yeah, and I had to rip in a Madison phone book in 2. And what they do is bake it.
Oh, I see.
And then they rip it a little bit so that when you go, it works.
So you actually did do that.
Oh, I did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So here you are on stage again as a kid performing. This is more
5 years old now.
Right, but this is more of like a shtick, like a funny thing. You're making people laugh, and it's a fun time.
Right.
But that isn't entering into the background of music quite
not yet.
But you're getting your footing on stage and performing and feeling comfortable on stage and getting these opportunities as a child. Was that pushed along by your parents to do something like that?
Actually,
at a young age?
My father had a band before I knew. I don't remember it at all.
Right.
Because, but I remember him playing saxophone when I was young and around the house, and he'd play a C melody saxophone, which I have no idea what that is, but it's like a little B flat saxophone.
And so he was in a band?
Yeah, he had called the Melody Makers back then, and they would play music. I don't know if he was married at the time. I don't know if it was after the war. I have no recollection.
But do you remember if there was music playing in the house all the time?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. We always had music. I remember we had a Spartan radio, and with that Spartan radio, you could get a 45. When 45s first came out, you could get a changer that sat on top of that Spartan radio.
That would be the equivalent of having an iPad today. It was that technologically.
It was super advanced. And you could put 4 or 5 records on there, and they would drop, and then they'd pick up and play.
That is really cool.
Oh, it was. It was one of the first things around Mount Horeb at that time.
Yeah. And so with music playing at home, are you are you listening to lyrics of songs? Are you just trying to take in the melody of songs, or it's just in your household, so it's just kind of part of your lifestyle?
Music was part of the household. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you're one of how many kids?
We have 2 other brothers and an older sister.
It's one of 4.
Yeah.
And so, as one of 4 kids, are you? At what point do you take interest into wanting to play music,
perform?
Yeah.
My older brother, when he was in high school, all of a sudden got together with 2 other people. One guy played snare drum, and the other guy played guitar. Mm-hmm. So they were called the Saints, and they used to go to the talent shows around the area. And they went to one in Cross Plains, and at that talent show, they played. They didn't win because the baton twirler of 13-year-old baton twirler won. But at the end of that,
they got beat by a baton twirler.
Well, you had
that had to be incredible.
Oh.
Tossing that baton up 10
She was
feet in the
awesome.
air.
She was just. I wasn't there.
Stars and Stripes forever.
I just heard the story
okay.
after. Anyway, at the end of the night, they took it from that stage into the little VFW shelter, and they played probably about another hour for all these people. And it was like, ooh, you can do that?
So that was your first realization of thinking there's something to this.
Exactly.
And in combining that with your prior experience of being at least on stage, have some sort of a presence of mind to know I can perform. Yeah. I can do something that people will want to watch and see and pick up the talent of. Intuitively.
They were.
But I mean,
they were stars.
Yeah,
I wasn't yet at that time.
No, but I mean, intuitively, there's something happening that you're picking up on.
Yeah, that it was like, oh, you can do this.
Right.
And then after that, I got around to like 6th grade, and I learned to play saxophone in the 6th grade band before I got into high school.
And that was the first instrument that you picked up?
Yes.
Okay. And is that because of your father that was playing
Pretty much, yeah. But also because the music at that time, the number one lead instrument was not the guitar at that time. It was the saxophone. Everybody, all the cool songs had that sax playing in the background.
Yeah, yakety sax was huge at that time.
Oh, man. And just about any song of the doo-wop era had a sax, was the main instrument that played all the really cool lines.
And so were you getting into playing saxophone at that time, or you just picked it up because it was part of your family?
Well, no, I picked it up because of
genuine interest.
Yeah, because
it was trendy.
That was I couldn't play guitar. My brother Bill played guitar.
Oh,
so I
didn't
played
know that.
sax.
Yeah. Huh.
So anyway, from there, then I would go to all the rehearsals of the Saints.
Yeah.
And I'd bring my saxophone, and I could play all the sax licks. At that time, I taught myself how to play by ear. So as
now,
they say,
see, that's interesting. Learning to play by ear is not an easy thing to do, but I find that people who are super creative and into music tend to do that a lot. I, at a very young age, picked up piano and was playing piano, and then that led into other things in high school, playing percussion, but I always sticked with piano, and of course I took lessons, and I would read the sheet music, but my favorite thing to do was always play by ear and be able to genuinely write something that sounded good and be able to, I wasn't afraid of like hitting the wrong note or trying to experiment and understand like, okay, if I play this chord progression, this sounds interesting. So I relate to that, and that is, that's really cool.
Well, it was because I learned to read music, sax music, and went, oh, okay. And then it was a transition to go, okay, put this record on, listen to it. Oh, that's that note. Where's that note? Okay. And then how does that go from there? Oh, it's like this.
So were you pulling the record back and having to listen to that?
Yeah. Well, that's how I had to learn all the sax licks on some of these songs at the time.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, this is cool. So I would take the sax to rehearsal for the Saints. And another thing, I had a talent of being able to listen to a song maybe once or twice, and I really could pick up lyrics really fast.
What do you think that is?
I have no clue.
Because that's not quite a photographic memory, but that is still retaining information. And that'll come into play when you're trying to learn songs off the cuff or when you're, trying to try a new, it comes in handy a lot,
Well, for these guys, it was great because they'd go, okay, Dan, write down the words to this song so we can learn it. And I'd go, okay. And I'd just get out a pencil and paper and I'd write it down for them.
Yeah.
And they would use it for their own personal thing.
Yeah.
And another thing at this time, in Mount Horeb, this was above the village hall, or not the village hall, but where they kept all the trucks and things for the village of Mount Horeb. Yeah.
Okay.
And above that was a room, probably the little bit bigger than twice the size of the room we're in right now.
So like an attic, or
yeah, okay. It was just an upstairs, and it was used for the scouts. So it was the scouts would have their meetings in this room. But normal people could use it too, and that's where they rehearsed. So the saints would get together and be doing all these, doing the music, and in the summertime they'd open the windows, and then you'd hear this clapping outside, and you'd go out, and here would be a big crowd of people, kids, listening to this three-piece band do these songs.
Yeah.
And I looked out, and it was, this is cool.
Now, how did you even know to arrange a band, like get into a band? Were you asked to be part of that, or did you arrange it?
Not until I got into high school.
Okay. How did you know about them then?
Well, that was my brother.
Yeah.
Was my older brother, Bill.
Yeah.
And Jim Barsness. And,
a friend.
Yeah, and another friend by the name of Alan Jenkins who played the snare drum.
And they called themselves the Saints.
The Saints, yep.
And so being the younger brother, you kind of got to tag along and be listening.
Yeah, and
so now I'm starting to understand where that musical interest comes from and getting it passed down to you and having it be a part of your life. And so you're learning saxophone, you're kind of getting excited about playing these different licks in the songs. And so how does that then transpose itself to, do you learn guitar, do you learn bass, or is that much later? Or
when I was I guess it was towards the tail end of my sophomore year, the class ahead of me who were juniors, they had a band. Mm-hmm. And it was 3 people, and they needed a bass player. So I said, okay, I'll learn how to play bass. So I went and bought a bass because I was working at Cave of the Mountains at the time as a guide.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Is it still the same today?
Well, it's different now, but yeah, it was
much
fun.
Deeper now.
Yeah, and warmer.
And warmer, yeah.
So I went and bought a bass and learned the bass licks for the songs that we were playing. And basically...
What do you mean by learning, though? Is it again by ear?
Yes,
it is?
Totally.
Okay.
Totally by ear.
Yeah.
Because at that time, they hired me, these 3 older guys hired me to be a lead singer because I was a singer most of...
Yeah, and so where does that come from, your singing?
Just all through school.
Yeah, but were you ever in choir or anything like that?
I was in choir, I was in chorus.
You had some sort of like formal training
all
in
the time.
Singing.
Yes, very much so.
So you understand how to use your voice as an instrument.
Yes.
And so did you ever, so were the Saints singing too?
Well, 2 of them did.
Yeah.
My older brother did, and Rick Barsness, but the drummer did not.
Right. But I mean, understanding that you can correlate playing an instrument and sing and be part of a band. This is all kind of taking shape for you very early on.
Yeah, but it's very progressive. I mean, if you look at the timeline of things, everything happens just in a line. Nothing happened like, boom, surprise.
No, but I mean, you've had music involved in your life forever,
right?
And so your timeline, as you say, does make sense because here you are picking up an instrument, and then from there having family around that is playing and singing and just playing music on records. Mm-hmm. So it seems second nature to you to pick up the idea of like, I'm going to sing, I'm going to play bass, and then we're going to move on from there and start playing in a band.
Right. So with these group of guys that I did in the summer of my sophomore, and then they became seniors and I was a junior, we just kept playing all along that. And then all of a sudden we started playing more. So one of the guys left and my older brother Bill joined the band, and we became Icarus and the Elements.
Oh, cool.
Yes, and
That's a cool name.
It was, and we went and tried out for one of those contests, and we sucked.
Best of.
Yeah.
Battle of the Bands.
Yeah, and we
It's
yeah,
Battle
exactly,
of the Bands.
Exactly.
Icarus of the Elements.
But we were they didn't like us, but
yeah.
the
Well, what were you playing? What kind of like?
Well, we were doing all the English music, but I was not good enough to play Beatle bass. So I did Rolling Stones. We did mostly Rolling Stones and them
but so you were playing rock and roll music.
Oh yes, very much
and
so.
that was the first. I mean, not that you have to play that when you play bass, but was that kind of your learning style coming up playing bass? Was that you were learning a lot of rock and roll music and having reference to people or groups like the Beatles and the Stones?
That was the music that was really hot at that time. That there were the English invasion.
Yeah, rock and roll.
But then at that time, I was really into soul music. I really loved.
Why? Were you the only one in your family that kind of took to that type of music?
Yeah, very much
Why
so.
do you think?
It was just more melodic, I think. And it was like, wow, that's really cool. Things like, oh man, I can't even think right now. Otis Redding.
Right.
Wilson Pickett, those things just,
So these were guys that you were listening to at the time, and it was just hitting you in a way.
Yeah.
What, you like a teenager at this time, right?
Yeah, I was in high school.
Yeah. And so were you buying records of this stuff and playing them?
No,
or where did you
because
go to listen to this stuff?
My older brother worked at a drugstore, and he would bring home the songs, and I would go and listen to them in his room.
Oh, so he would bring them home from the store.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. And so then you would listen to them, and were you listening to them out of enjoyment or listening to them going, how do I do that? How do I play that?
First, it was enjoyment.
Yeah.
And then if the guys in the band would say, okay, we're going to learn this song, then I would go, okay, all right, let's figure it out. How am I going to do? Where's that note come from? What note is that?
Right, because I mean, so you were in Icarus and the Elements at the time, and again, great name. And so you guys were playing covers of those songs, and so you were taking to then playing back the tracks, and here you are, learning by ear again, playing by ear, and moving forward that way, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we, of course, we graduated, go to college. Yeah. And at college, I was.
Were you all in the same grade? All the Icarus guys?
No, they were ahead of me. So they took off and went to school first.
Did the band kind of disassemble at that point, or
actually no? We actually stayed together pretty good. It was amazing, and so we would 3 of the guys. Gary Boley became an engineer.
Yeah.
Greg Martin worked for Rayovac.
Yeah.
And my brother Bill became an insurance agent.
Right.
And I was still in high school. And then after that, I went to Whitewater, and one of the guys also was at Whitewater. My brother Bill lived in Wanakee, was an insurance agent, so we could get together. And Greg Martin worked for Rayovac, so we still played weekends.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every weekend, it was a suitcase college, Whitewater, so I came home, and we'd go out and play somewhere, and then we'd go back to school.
Now, what kind of venues were you playing in at the time as up-and-coming, young kids playing music? Yeah,
primarily bars.
Yeah,
but then during my freshman year at college, my brother Bill called me and said, "We're going to be the Batman," and he went, "What?" Yeah. I mean, by that time, Batman and Robin was on TV, and they were the biggest thing going at that time.
Bam, pow,
exactly.
Yeah.
So we said, "All right."
Yeah.
And his wife Sharon made our outfits, which were gray pajamas.
Oh my gosh!
Oh yes, and we got army belts that we sprayed fluorescent yellow.
You guys were dressing as the characters.
Robin and the Batman.
Did you have a cape?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, you have to have the cape.
We had the capes. We had the uniforms. We had the.
Was the idea to do that to stand out and be different and to
was to make money.
Was to make money because it would be kind of like the draw that would bring people to come and see you. And people would, of course, be talking about it. There's these guys on stage dressed like Batman characters. And people got to go see it, got to check it out and see what it's about.
Exactly.
And everyone, every other band coming through were either playing original or playing covers, but they all, were very similar.
But there were a lot of Batman and Robin's bands at that time.
Wait, what? Why?
Because everybody wanted to jump on that bandwagon of the Batman character. That's a lot of money.
Right. So there were several bands that were dressing up as the characters.
Right. Plus the fact we went to Kuka Records in Sauk City and recorded a song called Good Morning, Commissioner.
Oh my God!
Oh yeah, we did a Batman theme from that.
Wow!
And took it down to WLS in Chicago to Ron Riley, who was the Batman aficionado in there, and had a meeting with him, and went down and drove down to Chicago in uniform.
You were in uniform.
We got the Batman
whole band together. Everybody. Right. We got to show up. We got to be in uniform because we're going to sell this thing and we want to be on the radio.
We had the Robin and two Batman to go into this thing and hand this record to Ron Riley, which we did. And it did get played on WLS for probably 3 times, and then it was pulled.
How did you and your bandmates have the know-how to do this at the time and make this a business and make this a I would say a career, because you've actually made a career out of it. Is playing music.
Most
in bands.
of my life I've played music.
Yeah, but how did you know early on that we need to record a record? We need to take it. I mean, it would seem like second nature today for anybody up and coming and doing music today that they're gonna record something, put it online. I would even go as far as say even a show like this, I'm doing myself and just putting it out because I have the technical knowledge and just the genuine curiosity to do something like this. But how back then, as technology is obviously not where it is today, or was, where it is today, how did you have the know-how to do something like that?
Well, we had all heard of Kirstein, who was the owner of the record company up there in Sauk City, and we decided, let's go and make a record. And we went, okay, fine. So with the Batman theme and everything, we decided to go up there, cut a record, and just start selling it from stage and see how it goes, which we did. And
was that costly at the time? Was that
I think
studio time and getting the prints?
Yeah, because I think it was a little over $800, which we did not have. At that time, we were making a grand total of probably $75 a night.
Right.
I mean, for the whole band.
Right. And so when you want to make an $800 record.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah. For one song, by the way. Yes. Just for one song.
Yes.
And getting the prints of those and putting them out at shows. What were you selling the individual copies for?
I think for $1.
For $1. So, but it was more about, at that point, if you went to go see a band and they said, here's our record, that was everything.
It was cool. Oh, look at those guys.
Yeah. And they could then take some of the show home with them and have something to remember you guys by. So when you're around again, they go, oh, I saw those guys. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole business background at that time that is really cool to me, that you and your bandmates had the knowledge and the know-how to do that. And not that there was like, okay, this is the way to go, but at least the confidence to go, well, other people are doing it, why can't we do it? And so let's figure it out.
We had the confidence mainly because most of the times we played were in local bars around the Mount Horeb area, and people went, oh, you guys are good.
Right.
And we thought, yeah, we're really good.
If someone keeps telling you how great you are, of course, you're going to take it in.
I wonder where that comes from.
Yeah.
I'm great. Anyway, then so we got hired to do a summer job at Whitewater College, and we played down there.
So the summer job was to play music?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was a one-nighter in Whitewater
I see,
at the Student Union.
To do it.
Yeah. And we thought, man, this is it, big time.
Right.
We went there, and they said, who the heck do you guys think you are? You suck.
Oh.
You just are the worst
They went the
band.
other way around.
Oh, man, they hated us.
Yeah. So after all of this recognition and this praise you got,
we're flying on a cloud going in there, and we're digging ourselves
here's
out
a kick to reality right here.
Man.
Someone, this was after you did the record, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you guys were just floating.
We dressed up in our uniforms and everything, and I had sweat coming down.
So what's that like to be in uniform, dressed as one thing, and then told, told you're no good. So what was the reaction? You said they told you were no good, but I mean, were they booing you? Were they?
They did not boo us, and there was a lot of people dancing, but they just went, man, you guys are just... Because most of the bands they got in Whitewater came from Milwaukee, which was probably some of the best musicians and the best music in the United States at that time was in Milwaukee, but it stayed there.
Yeah.
It did not go beyond that.
Yeah.
Because as you well know, no Wisconsin bands have ever made it big.
Well, back then anyway.
No, it's to this day.
Well, I think there
Certain
are some.
individuals have, yes. But I mean...
As a whole band? There's got to be.
Cheap Trick is considered to be probably the biggest band, but they say from
Butch
Rockford.
Vig, of course, in Garbage.
Yeah, but that was...
Right.
Long after, right. You know.
So a question I have is, when you're a band dressed as Batman characters on stage, and dressed as Robin and all the characters on stage, and you have a record with one song, what other songs are you playing dressed as those characters?
We're playing all the songs, all the big hits at that time, which could be the Rolling Stones, Louie
the rock and roll stuff.
Yeah, all the big rock and roll things of that era.
Yeah, and you were playing a full set, like full hour.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so that's and people were really digging the costume stuff.
They liked that, yeah.
Yeah.
That got us into an awful lot of places at the time. It got us all up and down the Milwaukee group of bars over there, Thiensville and things like that, and a lot of radio ads and things like that, just because we had a record. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, Robin and the Batmen and the record is still, you can find it on the interweb yet.
Really? It's still there?
Yep.
So how long did that band last for?
That lasted for roughly 6 months.
Okay.
And then we went from that.
By the way, just in 6 months, that's a lot of experience you just got. Performing on stage, being in a band, recording a record, feeling the highs, feeling the lows, all packed into 6 months. That is a full experience. That's
a lot of time, that's as long as most bands at that time lived.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And so then after that, what was the next band that you were in?
The next one, we decided to go to the English look, and I started wearing at that time I had very curly hair.
Yeah.
So I got a straight-haired wig, and we became The Chances Are.
The Chances Are. So was this still the same guys?
Same guys as the band was before, but everybody let their hair grow long, except Brother Bill, who was an insurance agent.
Nice. Yeah. Hey everyone, just want to take a quick moment and let you know of a few ways you can help support the show. First, you can like this video and subscribe to our channel if you enjoy the content we're putting out. Share this episode with other creatives and help spread the word. Next, you can go to creativesideup.com. That'll take you over to our Ko-fi page where you have the ability to drop us a few bucks and help support independent creators like myself so we can bring you more episodes and feature even more creatives. Additionally, you can go to anchor.fm/Edgeline Studios and have access to everywhere the podcast is available. And if you'd like, you can tap the support button and become a supporter with a small monthly donation to help sustain future episodes. Finally, follow us on Instagram at CreativeSideUpPod. Join the conversation, send us a voice message. Share your story with us. We want to know, what do you do creatively and what inspires you to do it. Your message could be featured on an upcoming episode of Creative Side Up. So thank you for all your support, and now back to the show. So you drop the Batman thing.
Right.
And you guys then become Chances Are.
Correct.
Why the shift? Was the trend wearing off? Was the Batman trend wearing off?
Yeah,
and so you came up with a new idea?
We had gone through using the record and everything about it. We took it about as far as we could at the time.
Yeah.
And
promoting yourselves, getting on the radio.
Yeah. And at the time then, the English music was really strong. So we decided, well, let's go with that look with the long hair and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Was that wig based, or was that straightening your real hair?
I wasn't straightening my real hair. It was wig based at that time.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we used to wear it, and we were up in Marquette, Menominee, Michigan.
Sure. Playing
up there, and we had just finished a show, and we went across the river into Wisconsin and stayed at a motel. Mm-hmm. And as we got into the motel, the ink spots were in the motel staying that night also.
And that's another band.
The Ink Spots were
Yeah.
a huge black group of entertainers
Yeah.
at the time. And I had taken the wig off.
Roughly what year is this? Do you think
This would
70s
be 19,
somewhere?
No,
no.
60, probably
60s.
67, 68.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So
66, 67.
okay, so but you're there in this motel.
Yeah, and I had taken the wig off, and underneath then all my hair had just kinked up
Yeah.
into really little tight curls.
Sure.
And so one of the Ink Spots tapped our guitar player and said, who bleached him? As they pointed at me.
Yeah.
That's one of my big...
Yeah, so there you go. So they recognized you. You
Well,
know?
they know to recognize the hair.
Yeah, the hair. But you guys are Chances Are then.
Yep.
And so what's the difference in the bands other than you're not playing that Batman song anymore? You got different look,
Yeah,
but
that's it.
you're playing the same type of
That's it.
covers, the trends, the top songs that are out.
Top 40 at that time,
Yeah.
you betcha.
You're doing live music. People are coming out dancing at
Yep.
your shows
Yep.
and listening to live music.
And we played probably, we'd go to, at that time, we'd do 2 nights a week, Friday, Saturday.
Now, are you guys still holding your day jobs at that point, or are you?
Well,
so
I'm going to school.
You're going to school, but this was on weekends
Yeah,
mainly.
exactly.
That you guys would do
Exactly.
you would travel somewhere and go do a weekend show somewhere. And so, in that case, are you then thinking, I want to make this my career. I want to build a career
No,
out of this?
I had no clue.
You were having
I was
fun.
going to be an engineer at that time. I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. They made great money. They did interesting things. I had my grandfather was a very learned man, that self-made man that basically could look at an object and go, okay, this is how this is made. And I got a lot of what do I want to say? Things from him in that knowledge, in that same general thing. So I wanted to keep going that way. I enjoyed the heck out of that.
Sure.
So music was still just, well, let's do that on weekends because it was a nice way to make money. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed people singing with us. I enjoyed people shaking hands. I enjoyed looking at girls, and girls always look great from stage. And so I went on from that. And then that band kind of disbanded, and
Chances Are did.
Yeah.
So that disbanded, and why did it break up? Why did it? Everybody moving in different directions.
Yeah, basically, the guitar player went elsewhere. My brother Bill went on to another job, so he couldn't be in the band all the time.
Yeah.
Gary Boley became an engineer, and he started actually working in civil engineering and stuff like that. So
yeah, are you listening to new music at the time?
All the time.
Where are you going to listen to music?
Anywhere. I always have it on the radio. Always have it on at the house. I'm constantly listening to it. And going out and seeing bands.
That's what I was just going to
time.
say. Were you going to shows also?
All the time.
And so, what's your experience going to see bands? Are you wanting to meet them? Are you? Did you ever get an experience to meet any of the bands that you went and see?
Oh,
so that,
God, yes.
So that there's some sort of I don't know how to put this, but if there was like just a respect between musicians and bands, and so. Would you ever introduce yourself and say, "Hi, I play bass"? And would you ever?
For the most part, no. I was never.
You were there as a spectator.
Yeah,
just
I would go up and I'd compliment people all the time.
Yeah.
If I would go to a club and see somebody I liked, I went, go up to them and say, "Boy, I really enjoyed what you have done.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good." But I was really leaning towards. During that time, I had gotten. With Shane Todd, and the group was called Shane Todd and the Shane Gang, and we had.
I love all these names, by the way.
Prison garbs on.
Yeah.
And my number on the back of mine was 20% off. And
what does that mean?
That every prisoner has a number.
A number, yeah.
And mine was 20% off. Had nothing. But Shane was a very great showman. He really showed me how interacting with people, you went, woo.
You mean the crowd, the audience.
Exactly.
Because I've seen you perform many times, and it's always making eye contact with the crowd. It's always laughing at moments that are happening in the crowd, having a good time, enjoying yourself, and making sure that the crowd is having a good time as well.
Yep.
And where does that, so I guess you're saying that's where some of that comes from, and
where,
picking up on those kind of cues and taking that with you, right?
I was very fortunate at the time, because Shane was probably the biggest act in Madison at that time.
Yeah.
And his bass player went on to do another gig, and so Shane asked me to join, and I was like, you betcha.
Yeah.
And I gleaned a lot of information from him. We hung out together all the time. We talked about music. We talked about the shows, how it was done, etc.
So you wanted to get inside. You wanted to know the technical details. You wanted to know where people stand on stage, the movement. Why does this happen during this time?
I like choreography. I like
lighting,
jokes. Oh man, all of it.
The presentation, the whole thing, the setup.
Yep.
And so because you liked that, you wanted to be a part of that. You wanted to find a way in to actually perform on stage in a band that was an actual show.
Yes, very much so.
And everything from every step of the way, it seems like you've become comfortable very early on being in costume of some sort.
Oh yeah.
From being the atomic bum on stage all the way up dressing like Batman and Robin, and moving forward in that direction.
Wearing a wig on stage.
But just having fun.
Yes.
Being in a show that it doesn't take itself too seriously and is just, trying to create a fun environment is really cool. And so you're only playing bass every step of the way?
All the time. Just playing bass.
Now, did you mention where you learned how to play bass?
I just picked it up.
No, right. And I know you said you learned how to play by ear, but how did you have an attraction to that instrument?
Only because when the first band that was getting together didn't have a bass player.
Oh, I see.
So I went, okay, I'll do that. I'll play bass. I'll learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what it was.
So you had to go buy a bass.
Oh yeah, and an amp.
Yeah.
And went out, and my mom took me to Forbes Maher in Madison, and I bought my first bass, and I bought an amp, and I brought it home, and my dad picked up the bass, and was doing this.
He knew how to do that.
Oh no. He just knew because he played ukulele.
Well, I mean, anybody. Oh, okay.
All right.
Right.
So he was picking it and went, I can't hear it. And I said, well, you need an amp. And he said, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Why do you buy something that you need another thing to make it sound?
Yeah,
and
generational gap
that's
there.
Probably true.
Yeah. And so then learning bass and listening to music, like you said, listening to albums over and over again.
Oh, I'd spend hours. I'd spend hours learning.
That's very similar to the way you were learning, extending your knowledge of the saxophone too.
Oh,
That same mentality of playing those sounds over and over again and understanding the and you already knew notes at that time from playing sax.
Correct.
So learning how to implement that into a brand new instrument. But you were never cautious about not cautious, but you just jumped all in the bass. You said no one else is willing to do it. I want to do this.
Yeah.
And if this is my way in, then I'm going to learn it.
Well, they had already hired me as a singer. So I figured I
don't want to stand there and just sing.
I look at the singers, and they all were doofuses at that time, pretty much, know.
And you just wanted to be in a Batman costume playing music.
And I wanted to do something with my hands.
Okay.
And so the bass was the next way of going there.
Right.
So I did it. And then, of course, with Shane Todd, we had a 3-piece band. So the bass had to be playing all the time, as well as the guitar and the drums. It was really a great way of doing it.
And bass became a very instrumental part of music at that time.
Thanks to
rock
Paul
and
McCartney.
Roll and totally.
Yes.
And so the bass was just this underlying these little rhythmic melodies underneath every single song at that time.
Yeah.
And without it, it would almost feel empty.
And that's why I really liked soul music at that time, because the bass was the primary instrument
right.
of most soul songs at that time.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because even when I listened to the album you put out when you got into Spot and Blotters with Circulating, which was an A and B side record, and so even that Circulating song, it even starts out on bass, don't, right there, and so you're sitting right in that back groove. And it's almost like the bass became the percussive element of the music at that time.
Exactly.
And so you were driving those songs, And so asking you then about Spot and the Blotters, was that the next band, or was there another one after the...
There was a...
So wait, there was Batman, then the Chasers, and then...
Changing Time... Chances Are.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Then
Chances Are, yes.
Then Shane Todd and the Shane Gang.
Yes.
And then after that, I got hired to do just a couple gigs with a band that was called... I just lost it. I had it.
You had it.
Yeah.
But you sat in for them.
Yeah, and it was they were doing all soul music.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh man, this is so cool.
But you didn't know anyone else in that band.
I knew one other guy in that band that came from Mount Horeb, but I knew none of the other guys. And those guys actually turned out to be one of the main rock and roll bands in Madison years after that.
Oh, interesting.
But at the time, they were doing soul music, and from that got me really involved into it. Yeah. Oh, the Changing Tides Review was the name of the band.
Changing Tides Review.
Yeah, because most of the soul bands at that time
had
a review in it.
Yeah, so they were a review.
Yeah.
But they were essentially just, again, playing covers of top soul music at the time and playing those hits, so that anybody who came out and saw it, they would be hearing what they're hearing on the radio or in albums, or a version of anyway.
And then from that... Spot and the Blotters came to Madison, and some of the people that I had met through the Changing Times went to them and said, "Oh, you need a bass player? You ought to get this kid."
Why was there so much? Why at that time was it so important to have cover bands? It seems like a lot of the local establishing bands were all doing the covers. Why was that so important?
Because the main recording acts weren't traveling as much at that time. So, and there were a lot of clubs all over found out, well, they could make money.
They're looking for live performance.
Yeah.
They want it. It's a great way to bring in some extra cash for your establishment.
When we were younger and playing in Robin and the Batmen and the Chances Are, we went down to a little town called Mount Vernon. And there was a guy by the name of Virgil, had Virgil's Valley Inn. And we went up to him and said, "Virgil, look, you don't have to pay us. We'll just charge 50 cents at the door just for the band, and that's it. And we'll put up posters and all that, and we'll play for you for the night." And he went, "Yeah, okay, we'll try it."
Yeah.
Lo and behold, we started packing that place after about 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Because people from all around the area, live music still wasn't
as popular?
No, I mean, it was popular, but they didn't know where to go to.
Yeah.
And so...
It wasn't a culture. It wasn't
no, it's not like
a necessity.
Yeah.
It wasn't Yeah, it was still so new at the time.
At that time, there was the 21-year-old bars and the 18-year-old bars.
Were there bands? I mean, there had to have been bands that were playing original music, but it seemed like the bigger draws were the cover bands at the time.
Cover bands, you betcha.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at, I was thinking about this the other night. Jackson 5 got their start, not because they did originals, but they did covers. They did covers of people from before them. Yeah. And all of a sudden, then they got the airplay.
Yeah.
And then they had people starting to write their own music.
Well, and I look at like upbringing of pop stars like maybe like Bruno Mars.
Yes.
Who started very young in his parents' review show doing covers. So it's like there's this culture of people wanting to perform songs that other people are familiar with.
Exactly.
And not getting a chance to go see the large concerts or whatever they were charging at the time, or even just travel distance, because they weren't coming to Madison at the time.
No, not in the early days.
Yeah.
They started after they were playing at different venues all over Madison, and they were opening up. I mean, Jimi Hendrix played here. I was living in an apartment about a block away from where he played, and I just sat outside and listened to him play that night.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but all over Madison there were some in the early days. Doing the Coliseum and some of these other places.
So if I jump over to when you're in Spot and the Blotters, and as we talk about doing covers, which you guys mainly were a variety act, and you would play covers, but you had the opportunity to make an album called Circulating with Al Green's producer at the time.
Yes.
And so how do you go from being an act that's doing covers to somebody providing you an opportunity to do something original?
It's being at the right place at the right time. We were at that time to meet him and Al Green. We were in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in a place called the Basement.
Palmer James.
Yeah.
And
he just stopped in one night because he had, I guess he had played there earlier. And he stopped in one night because at that time we would be playing like 5-6 nights a week. All the time. Every place we'd go, it was always a week gig. And he stopped in and said, look, this is Al Green. Do you mind if he sits in and does a song with you? And we go, shh, go ahead.
Was this before he was big, or was this?
He was just starting
coming up
to rise.
Okay.
He had Backup Train had just started,
Okay.
and it was on its way up.
Yeah.
None of us knew who he was.
Yeah.
We figured, okay, what the hell? We'll
let him sit in.
Yeah.
And what was he? What do you mean by sitting? Like, what was he doing?
He just was going to come in and sing a song with us.
Oh, okay. For one song?
Yeah, one song, and it was Harlem Shuffle.
Oh.
And at that time, I had heard it, but I did not know it that well.
Right.
Spotto and Dino and I think it was Bobby at that time. They knew it, so they went, okay, fine. So he sat in, and we started doing the song.
Yeah.
And at the end of the song, Spot just looked at me and said, I don't think he's going to go anywhere. He's just not that good.
Al Green himself, you know, the great Al Green. And so, I mean, in your world, in your experience, you know how to play by ear. So you're picking up on the chord progressions and what you need to do. And I'm sure it sounded great. But was that sit-in, that moment, was that what led to Palmer James, his producer, to saying, let's record something?
Yes, yeah.
It was just the right place at the right time.
Right.
He could have not been there.
He was there, and he went, oh, they got a good sound.
Interesting.
He sat in the audience for, I don't know how long he was there for.
Yeah.
Mainly because usually when we're performing, we're doing choreography, we're doing skits, we're doing things all the time. And I'm
it's
looking
a whole show. You're watching everybody.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on.
And then he came up and talked to us, and we went,
afterwards.
All right,
he came up. And so was that experience like him saying, I want to record a song for you, or I want you guys to come in?
You guys, have you done any recording? And we went, no, we haven't. And at this time, Dino was writing stuff, but we had not taken the time off.
Were you in Minnesota, or where were you?
We were in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Oh, Grand Rapids. Yeah, you said that. Yeah.
And Dino's had been writing at that time for years.
Right.
But nothing, we never took time off to go to a recording studio.
And so getting that opportunity to record this track Circulating, A side, and then B side had the instrumental version.
Correct.
Are you, was that song written by you guys, or was that provided to you?
That was provided to us.
So he had that in his mind. He said, I have this track. You guys would probably be great for this.
Well, the one thing about Spot and the Blotters, musically, if you listen to them, they were okay. But you had to be in the arena at that time to really get the full impetus of what we were.
Right.
I mean, the excitement and the movement and the dancing and the lights and everything. It was a show.
Yeah.
From beginning to end.
And so you were finally living a dream that you had always wanted.
Man.
This was your highlight. This was listening to those soul albums. I mean, everything from learning bass, being in all those other bands, you were doing it.
Yeah.
And being asked then to record an album from Al Green's producer, and he brought you in. Did you guys have to pay for any of that, or it was all treated to you? It was all taken care of? You guys had to get yourselves there.
Basically, we did pay for it only because the studio that we recorded in was run by our producer's son.
Okay, so another connection there.
Yes.
Now, what's interesting about the album, I didn't really know about this till years later, and you told me, and I was able to find an actual physical copy of the album, and I gave it to you, but I told you I found it on eBay, and it came from overseas, over in Germany.
Yeah.
So I don't know where this cross from a single, a single album from this band that it should only be known to locals. Really, I mean, I know you guys traveled all over, but for someone in Germany to know about this,
something happened, and I don't remember. Internet radio stations started popping up when that started.
Right.
And there was a guy in Boston that had roots in the Michigan area, and he remembered the old bands from then. So he picked up songs and things and played it in Boston.
Yes.
All of a sudden, our songs started getting a lot of airplay in Boston.
Yeah.
Somebody in Germany heard this guy's stuff and picked up all those songs and sent them over to Germany, and they started playing there. So we got to be the number 2 most requested song in Germany at that time.
That is incredible. It's mind-blowing to think about that. It is one of the coolest things. And
I never knew about it. Right. I didn't know about it
until I got recognizing you on the street.
I got a call from Boston asking me about Spot and the Blotters, and I went, oh, okay. And so I sent him a whole bunch of information and literature.
Sure. And now we know why. Now we know that crossover. That's really cool. So after Spot and the Blotters, then is Torpedoes next after that, or was there another iteration?
There was
few other iterations.
There was another band after that called Under the Table, and that band backed up Tommy James and Gary U.S. Bond and things like that at different theaters in Indiana, in Minnesota, and Wisconsin.
Yeah, and then after that,
was the Torpedoes.
And the Torpedoes again was a band that I saw very young, and this was again, in a lot of times like cover bands get this kind of, there's this notion that cover bands are like so kind of like blah or whatever. Because it's just like people playing popular music. What's the excitement behind that? But again, here you are in the Torpedoes. This band was a show. This was a show. This was like, you could go to Vegas and see a show like this. You could, there's an entertainment value to what you did that is more than just playing songs that you're familiar with or that that you've heard before. It's not just that live cover. It's like, what I'm experiencing is special in this moment. No one's ever going to see this moment again.
Plus the fact that at that time, you would go and see Little Vito and the Torpedoes. And most of the people that would come to see us, outside if they were the kids of the family, were the moms and dads who grew up with that music.
Yes.
And all these songs had meaning to them as they were growing up. A
nostalgia factor to it.
Exactly.
Yes.
So they would go out and they'd be sitting there, and all of a sudden, Where the Boys Are would start. Or any of the songs that we would do.
It would bring back memories all these people.
They would flood in and they'd go out and dance, and they were once again transported back to when they were young and enjoying life. And they weren't the breadwinners at the time. They were just,
No, that's really cool, Dan. And so then, it's interesting because now you're in a time where you're with a band now called Universal Sound, which you've been with for a really long time. But you're doing something interesting in addition to that. You're performing with your brother again, your younger brother.
Yes.
Right? Or you're the younger brother. He's older than you?
No, he's younger than I am.
Okay, he's younger than you. The Sutter brothers.
Yes, he's 6 years younger than I am.
Here you are doing this more wholesome family act that is kind of touching on the same thing you talk about with nostalgia and playing these songs that are so familiar, but you're playing these stripped down acoustic versions of these songs and kind of adding a different emotional element to it. And in between the songs in your show, you're telling stories from your childhood growing up and you two together. And so,
people in the audience are relating to them. It's amazing. It's actually scary. There are times when we're playing, Greg and I, and I'll look out and here's some guy sitting at a table and he's starting to cry.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden this song hit him and
it meant something. It meant something, like there's an actual connection that in that we have to music, and it resonates, and it creates who we are as people. And you getting a chance to perform with your family again, and bringing it back around full circle to where you began, and utilizing this moment that you have right now to kind of bring yourself together with your brother, who I'm sure you fought with growing up.
Oh, hated him. We hated each other. But that was I think that's siblings.
That's growing up, of course. And
Yeah.
so here you are in this moment now, doing this act, the Sutter brothers, where you guys are performing together, telling stories and relating to people who come and see you.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice experience. Do you envision yourself continuing with the Sutter brothers now, moving forward?
Probably, yeah.
It's in you. It's a part of you. You have all these stories to tell now.
Well, and the nice thing about that is there's no pressure, you know, and it's very relaxed. It's laid back. We do it very acoustically, as you said, and it's a quiet, interesting, intimate little situation that we
totally is.
We try to do.
Yeah, and there's a lot of emotion behind it, and it's really cool because even for people who don't know you or people who've never seen you perform before, it's a different side of you that you're willing to kind of express outward and portray that with music that people have heard before, and tell these stories of growing up and making it super relatable, right?
Yes, very much so. And it's songs that we grew up listening to as kids. And so a lot of the people go, oh, yeah, I remember. Oh, man, I haven't heard that in a long time. Yeah. That's great. I love that.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. Well, Dan, thanks for being on the show today. I really enjoyed hearing all these stories, and I'm sure we could go again for hours. So
we just started right there at the beginning of the...
I know, and so maybe we'll have you back on
Hawaii
for another episode. Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
No problem.
Creative Side Up is an Edgeline Studios production. Thanks for listening, and we hope you join us again soon.